Welcome to SO 306, Study Session 6, School Social Worker and Confidentiality. Introduction. In this study session, we will examine how the school social worker should relate with parents about information they feel must be shared with the teacher, and also balance legal and ethical responsibilities in providing services to students in the school setting. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Demonstrate how the school social worker should relate with the parent about information they feel must be shared. 2. Balance between the legal and ethical responsibilities in providing services to students in the school setting. Ethical and legal responsibilities. Parents may be concerned about the use of confidential information they share with the worker. It is most important that the school social worker be frank with the parent about the information they feel must be shared with the teacher, the principal, or other appropriate school personnel to help the child. Parents need to be assured that information which might hinder rather than help the child will be held in strictest confidence, and that in all cases only that which will be helpful should be shared. Some school social workers question the use of the social service exchange to obtain information without the parent's knowledge. School social workers have a responsibility to participate in community planning for this type of service and to express their belief and feelings about the proper management and use of the social service exchange. Providing services to students in the school setting requires a careful balance between legal and ethical responsibilities. School social workers must be conversant with federal, state, and local laws and policies governing confidentiality. School social workers must follow the guidelines established by the state and school district in which they work, recognizing that these guidelines may differ from those governing private practice. Most states recognize that communications between social worker and client are privileged. However, this privilege is not absolute. School social workers are members of a team of professionals may be confronted with situations where disclosure of information is critical to providing assistance to the student and family. It is the school social worker's obligation to obtain informed consent, that is, explain the limitations of confidentiality to the student and family prior to service delivery. Information should be shared with other school personnel only on a need-to-know basis and only for compelling professional reasons. Prior to sharing confidential information, school social workers should evaluate the responsibility to and the welfare of the student. The responsibility to maintain confidentiality must be weighed against the responsibility to the family and to the school community. However, the focus should always be on what is best for the student. School social workers must be conversant with affirmative reporting requirement. All states now require school professionals to report suspected cases of child abuse and neglect. School social workers should be aware of school board policies and should ensure that such policies safeguard confidentiality of the reporting individual. School social workers should familiarize themselves with school board policies and state and local laws governing reporting requirements for students who are HIV positive or have AIDS. School social workers should also be aware of state statutes providing confidentiality to minor students who seek treatment for sexually transmitted diseases, information about and access to birth control and pregnancy-related health care and counseling. Therapists, including social workers, are under an affirmative duty to warn if there is clear and present danger to the student or another identified individual. The social worker must warn any individual threatened by the student and must take steps to ensure the safety of a student who threatens suicide. In all instances, school social workers must weigh the consequences of sharing information and must assume responsibility for their decisions. The school social worker and written laws. School social workers must be conversant with federal, state, and local laws and policies regarding confidentiality and access to education records. Education records are all records that contain information directly related to a student and that are maintained by an education agency or institution. Parents have the right to inspect and review education records. Social workers' personal notes kept for use by only those individuals are not considered education records and are confidential. School social workers should inform students and parents that information gathered under the Individualized Education Program (IEP) process may be shared with all members of the IEP team. The team, which includes other school personnel and the parents, may use the social history compiled by the school social worker in making decisions about the student's educational program and placement. Documents maintained on a computer become education records if shared orally with another staff person. Sole possession records maintained on a computer are not considered part of the education record and are confidential. School social workers may also be aware that other staff members or computer technicians may have access to school-owned equipment, saving sole possession records to an individual storage device and securing that such may provide greater assurance of confidentiality. Confidential records should be transmitted by facsimile only when absolutely necessary. Such reports should include a notation indicating that the material is confidential and is for professional use by only the designated recipient. The notation also should indicate that review, dissemination, distribution, or copying of the facsimile is prohibited. Study session summary. In this study session, you learned that the school social worker must carefully weigh the decision whether to preserve the confidentiality of information or share the information, using the best interest of the student as a guide. Those decisions must be informed by federal, state, and local laws and policies, as well as the professional ethics of the school social worker. We have come to the end of SO 306 and study session 6. Thanks for listening.